I once thought that everything beautiful in life should be kept, but it turns out some things come only to teach us how to let go. Back then, I lived in a small room on the third floor of an old neighborhood. Outside the window stood a row of sao trees, almost bare now, with only a few yellow leaves trembling weakly in the wind. I used to sit there every afternoon, watching the last sunlight fall slowly on the wall, listening to the distant hum of traffic fading away, like an old song nearing its end. In that quiet, I thought about the things that had passed. A person, a relationship, an old version of myself. Someone who once laughed loudly over the smallest things and also cried endlessly over things that didn't deserve so many tears. I remember how afraid I used to be of losing. Afraid that one day I'd wake up and the person I loved wouldn't be there anymore. Afraid that familiar voices would vanish. Afraid that this room would become too quiet, too spacious, too real. But then that day came. It wasn't loud. There were no tears, just an ordinary morning. I woke up, opened my eyes, and realized no one was beside me anymore. The cup on the table still had half a stain of yesterday's tea. The shirt that used to hang by the window was gone. And in the wind there was a strange emptiness, as if the world kept moving on, and I was the only one left behind. The days that followed passed slowly, as if I were walking through fog. Every small act, cooking, making tea, turning on music, felt like a repetition of a memory. I was afraid to face the room, so I spent my days wandering through the streets, watching couples holding hands, watching children laugh, watching leaves fall, and realizing life goes on, with or without me. One afternoon, I stopped by an old bookshop at the corner of the street. Inside, the smell of paper and dust mingled, a scent that made me feel strangely calm. The shop owner, an elderly woman, looked up and smiled softly. "What are you looking for, dear?" I answered, "I'm not sure, maybe something that makes me feel a little lighter." She was silent for a moment, then pulled out a thin, worn book. Its title read, "The Seasons Know When to Let Go." That night, I brought the book home and read it slowly, page by page. There was one passage that made me stop for a long time. When autumn ends, no one blames the leaves for falling, for if they didn't fall, how could spring ever return? I closed the book and looked out the window at the tree branches now stripped bare. A breeze swept by, shaking the last leaf still clinging on. I watched it sway, silently let go, drift down, spinning a few times before coming to rest. And suddenly I understood. It wasn't because the leaf was weak that it fell. It fell because it knew it was time to go. From that day on, I began learning to say goodbye, not just to the one who left, but also to the person I used to be. I stopped pretending to be okay, stopped trying to hold on to things that no longer belonged. Every morning I made a cup of tea, opened the window, and let the wind in. I no longer tried to trap the sunlight inside the room. I simply let it visit, then go. Some nights, when the wind grew cold, I still felt my heart tighten, but instead of fighting it, I let it pass, like a guest. I learned that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about accepting that it happened, and realizing you can still live well after it. One early spring morning, when I opened the window, something small caught my eye. On the branch that had been bare for months, a tiny bud had appeared. Green, tender, so fragile that a slightly stronger wind might have blown it away. Yet it remained there, clinging to the branch, trembling in the sunlight. I smiled for the first time in a long while. Perhaps every winter does pass, and sometimes all we need to do is stand still for a while and let time do the rest. In the days that followed, I began to walk more. I met strangers and heard different stories. Everyone seemed to carry something unspoken, a pain, a loss, something they still couldn't let go of. And I realized no one is truly alone in that feeling. We just tend to think our pain is the most special one. Once, I met an old man sitting on a bench, looking out over the lake. I sat beside him and we stayed silent for a long time. He asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" I smiled, "No, I'm just waiting for my heart to quiet down." He nodded and said, "So am I. But you know, peace doesn't come from the absence of waves. It comes from learning to sit still and watch them go by." That sentence stayed with me ever since. Time passed, and my little room changed too. It was no longer empty, but filled with small traces of life. A cactus pot, a few paintings, random scraps of notes. Nothing perfect, but they were mine, and I felt comfortable in that imperfection. Sometimes I still think about the person who left, not with regret, but with a quiet smile. Because if not for them, I might never have learned how to let go. Yesterday, while cleaning my desk, I found the yellow leaf from that year between the pages of the old book. It had grown drier, more brittle, almost ready to crumble. I gently placed it in my palm, then opened the window. A soft breeze came, lifting the leaf away. I watched it rise into the air, swirling in the sunlight. There was no sadness anymore, only a silent gratitude for its presence once and for its journey now. Maybe life is just like the seasons. You can't hold on to autumn when winter has arrived, nor can you keep someone who's already ready to go. The only thing you can do is cherish what remains and be open when the next season begins. I'm no longer afraid of losing, because I know everything that leaves teaches us something. And sometimes it teaches us to love life itself, even when it's no longer the same. I close the window. The wind still blows, sunlight still falls. And in the quiet of my small room, I hear my heart beating slow, peaceful, as if, after all the seasons that have passed, I've finally learned how to stay, even when everything else is gone.